Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates. I'm also the author of the book Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. With me today, I've got the co-authors of the great book Get Good or Get Off. Do you want to introduce yourselves and tell everybody where they can get hold of you?
Sure. Well, I'm Jo Saunders, co-author of Get Good and Get Off, a guide to getting it right on social media. I'm based in and I specialize in LinkedIn, and you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to find me, but I'm everywhere.
Okay, and hello, I'm Ailsa Page, co-author of Get Good or Get Off, 2 plugs already. I'm a small business marketing expert, and I'm on the other side of Australia. I'm in Melbourne, and you can find me probably most active, I'd have to say, probably on Facebook under AP Marketing Works.
Well, welcome. So I have to declare an interest, which is I actually wrote the foreword for the book. So I actually got to read the book probably about 3-4 months ago. You very kindly asked me to do that. No, but why did you write the book? You know, explain because it's probably the hashtag of the year, which is get good or get off. I mean, it's the I love it. I need to start using it a little bit more. So why did you start? Why did you write it, Jo?
Well, the whole thing came about a couple of years ago now. Elsa and I met at a conference where I was speaking. Elsa was my MC timekeeper, and we've just connected. Each time we get together, we have this idea that just seeing people do social media really badly or feeling really overwhelmed and stressed, and we were thinking, how can we help them? There's so many books about social media, how to do it, the technical side, so many LinkedIn technical books. And we thought, well, taking it back a step, how can we help people?
And I guess what we also wanted to do, sorry, Jim, was we also wanted to give people permission to get off social media, because in small business, I see many business owners get very, very stressed about social media. Oh, I've got to do it, but they are not doing it well. And I wanted to get the message out as well, which was, well, okay, then maybe you are better off being off.
Because when I read it, for me, it was very much around the small business. So it seemed to me to be actually, positioned for the small business. And I like your idea that you're giving people permission to get off, because I see a lot of people that play around on social media. And, we had somebody contact us the other day and they said, we want to do social selling. And we started talking to them and we were talking about share of voice. And they said, oh, what's our share of voice? And I had to go back to them and I said, I'm sorry, but I can't find your social media. He said, oh, we're not on social media. Right. Okay. So I can tell you what your share of voice is. It's 0. It very much seems to be very much pitched at and you provide very good practical steps in the way that you're talking about it. Is that what you really want to do? Is provide those because there's lots of small businesses, and actually small business allows you to use social media, allows you to scale. And what I read was an ability for you to say, here are the steps that you need to walk through.
Yeah, I think
pretty much.
Sorry, Jo, you go.
No, you go. Actually, this is your baby. I mean, this is your passion.
Well, it really is, because a lot of small businesses really just don't understand. They've just been told you've got to be on social media, but they really don't understand why, how, for how long. And that just means that they are feeling so out of control. And in my experience with them, it is just taking it back to sort of basics, giving them a construct for, a reason for why this might work for them, but a very, not a sort of full of, rah hype, but just more grounded look, and also the simple steps, because if you make it too hard, it's too overwhelming. Sort of break it down into really bite-sized chunks so that wherever they are on their social media journey, they can pick up a few things and hopefully move a little bit further or get clearer on the decision of whether they are going to invest in social media to do it well, or likewise just pull off a few platforms.
Sure.
Yeah, well, pretty much. I mean, when you're looking at the small business space, they are very stretched in their time and their resources. And yeah, you just see, I mean, I'm you know, not guilty of this, but you go to these workshops. I mean, I get caught up in the social media buzz because I love technology. I love social media. And this is where Elsa and I are very opposites in some way. You know, I'm like, how does this work? Let me get inside, you know, underneath the covers. Let me see where, you know, where the boundaries are. But I find most small businesses don't need to do that. They don't need to necessarily use every platform. I mean, Snapchat, for example. You know, not every small business is going to use that. I don't even use it very well. I just use it to embarrass my daughter, really. that's its purpose, and to have a bit of fun. But it's that whole, you know, taking it back a step and giving people permission, as Elsa said, to actually not do it. Because, I mean, I do believe, just a bit of a disclaimer, side note, I do believe every business needs to be on LinkedIn in some way. But some businesses won't use it particularly, you know, as a regular part of their business. But there are just some platforms that we just don't need to be using, you know, and there'll be the next thing. There'll be some other thing coming out next week that, you know, someone's going to start talking about, like Gary Vee or someone, you know, go and, you know, crush it and use this platform and whatever. And then people get confused.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that you do is you don't immediately start talking about technology. I've read too many books where it's immediate. This is how you set yourself up on LinkedIn. This is how you set yourself up on Twitter. And then what you're doing, then there seems to be all we're going to do is post, without actually having some sort of strategy or understanding how you're going to use social media proactively within the business. And then what happens is what they do is that they post stuff that's boring, and then they don't even follow us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also people get turned off by the technology. Sometimes particularly with a lot of the businesses I tend to work with, I find that many people are quite technologically phobic. And, you know, and I, again, disclaimer, I call myself a reluctant technology enthusiast, because it kind of makes I find it very difficult. And I think again, what can help people move forward with social media is if they have a really clear reason for why they're on it, then they might be able to overcome any of their technology fears, because they go, oh, I get it, right, that's why I need to do it. And that will help. So for me to jump straight into the technology, you know, you see people's eyes glaze over when you're doing workshops on that. It's just give them the reason, the context, and then they can sort of put their toe in as much technology as they want to.
Joe?
Yeah, well, as I said, I love the technology part of it, and I'm very
ironically, you're the person that found getting on this platform the most difficult. So
I know. Yeah. That's why I was laughing on the back end, because that shouldn't happen to me, but it did. Yeah. But I think, it's stepping back out of the technology, and rather than jumping in and, you know, getting into how to create a profile, how to do this, what buttons to press, how to set up all your technology, stepping back to the whole, well, why are you here? Who are you trying to target? Who are you trying to connect to? Who do you actually want to build a relationship with? What kind of content do you want to, share? Do you even like writing content? Do you like using video? All those sorts of questions that, you know, make it easier for people to actually step on that and get into the tech, because they've now got the buy-in from both sides.
And I think sometimes that's a difficult step to make. Someone pointed out to me yesterday in the paper here in the UK that there was a thing about startups, and all the startups, you know, when they were pitching to VCs, all of the money that they were going to spend on advertising was on Facebook ads. Now, I live in an ad-free world. I don't believe in advertising. I completely don't see any adverts at all. And I think it's a misnomer for people to suddenly think that what we're going to do is that we're going to go and spend loads of money on advertising, because that may not be the right way of actually reaching our customers.
Oh, I just couldn't agree more. And I think for me, this is the thing that drives me nuts, is that everyone's got, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, you've got to be on social media. And even for some businesses, you know, putting all their marketing eggs in that basket may not be the right thing for them to do. You know, certainly to have a presence if they're wanting to get to build their online presence. But there might be a whole lot of other things as well that they need to be doing to round out their marketing mix. And likewise, you know, again, the whole, I've got to be on Facebook advertising. And it's like, yeah, well, you know, like any ad, your ad, you've got to know your audience, you've got to understand the language that's appropriate, and you've got to have a compelling advertisement. And even the platform may not be correct, so I just couldn't agree more. And too often we have this one size fits all, but one of my favourite lines is, look, one size fits nobody.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Yeah, just think about T-shirts that say one size fits everyone.
Joe.
Never works.
Joe.
It just never works. Yeah, actually interesting talking about ads, because I'm also I'm not an ad expert. So when people come to me for LinkedIn help, ads are not my basket. I pass that to somebody else, because I believe in the organic relationship. I mean, yeah, sure, you can use ads to sort of fast track it maybe and get in front of people, but you've got to know who these people are, where they're hanging out. And I think there's more value in this sort of stuff, the actual connection, picking up the phone, getting in front of people, having a meeting, speaking to people as a group, rather than actually paying for the attention. Because what actually strikes me is really interesting, and just, it's almost like we've gone backwards. If you look at YouTube and the ad strategies, and even Facebook video, the ads in the middle of a Facebook video, I just think, why are we interrupting people? We're over that, why keep doing it? It doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's about having a conversation, and social media is about having a conversation. It's no different than what we're doing here. I often talk to people and say, when I first started in sales, it was a long time ago. We had a typing pool, and we didn't have what was word processors or something. And I used to, find articles, and I used to cut them out, and I used to put a with compliment slip and put them in an envelope and send them to people. And then I've actually realized that that's actually equivalent of a tweet or of a LinkedIn post. So I haven't actually changed in anything that I've been doing over the last 25 years, just that the technology has evolved a bit. And I think sometimes people think that there's some sort of big magic around social media. I know someone, they hired someone from social media, and they said, well, I thought he was an expert because he had a beard.
I better keep working on mine then.
And it was like, yeah, right, okay. But there is, and what I like is the fact that you're trying to lay off this mystique about that social media, that actually anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's sorry, go. No, you go, Joe.
Well, I was going to say, one of the proofreaders for our book was my mother-in-law, who's in her early 70s. Yeah. And she read a couple of chapters and came back to me and said, I actually understand it. Now, she'd only just signed up with Facebook last year. And that was great, because I think not that she's in business, she's not a target market, but it was a good filter to understand that she gets it. And that's the thing, that we didn't want to have any technical kind of boundaries, I suppose, so that anybody could read it, understand the concepts. That made sense. And
I think that's a really good sense check of having somebody that can do that can understand that. I had a professional proofreader, and I was talking about guerrilla marketing, but as in gorilla, rather than gorilla, and they changed all the gorillas into gorillas. So my business partner's actually written a blog about guerrilla marketing being
like handing out brochures as gorilla suit.
With it in the gorilla suit, yeah.
Excellent.
And I think it's really important to have that understanding. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so much of it is it's like networking skills, but networking skills online. And so many people can't network offline, and yet they somehow expect that they're going to be able to network online. Now, and it's not about being an introvert or an extrovert. It's just understanding, the politenesses, the etiquette, and I think that's where a lot of people get lost. And when you sort of say to them, look, it's, imagine that you're trying to build up a friendship with someone, what would you do? You might take them over a cake, or you might, and you sort of break it down to that and sort of say, well, it's the same sort of thing. So what might be that giving someone a cake online, it can really help people go, oh, I get it, rather than see it as such a different beast, as though you have to be a different human almost to work social media, when really it is just, I think it's an extension of networking at one level.
Yes, I agree. Joe, what do you think?
Well, absolutely. When I do LinkedIn training, I teach people that you need to behave online as you do in person. And you know, those people that well, actually, there are some people in person that do behave badly, we'll call them. I call them the business card slammers. You probably know those people that run around networking events with their business card with the objective of distributing as many cards as possible and or taking as many cards as possible and then spamming them, adding them to their email list, we'll call it. But people are doing that online without thought.
I'm kidding. Yes, I don't do that.
But it's that going back to relationships and actually having quality conversations, you know, actually taking the time to get to know people, as Elsa said. And it's almost that it is very old school. I mean, way before I was in social media, way back, we're talking years ago, I used to run a pen friend club. So helping people connect through pen and paper. And that was a social, the reason was social, but it's the same reason as, behind how we connect now. It's taking the time to ask questions and get to know people and build those relationships. And you can't do that by automation. You can't do that by adding someone to your mail list and spamming them, because that doesn't, it doesn't sort of, feed that need to converse.
But don't, I mean, I've said to people, they've sent me cold outreach and I've said, my email inbox is usually something like delete, block, delete, block, delete, because I get outreach, cold outreach. So Social Media Examiner and Marketing Profs have produced articles that says this is how you outreach to influencers. So people have taken, here is the template, and I get these templated emails where they've lifted it directly from the article, and they send me this, and they think they're being original. It's like, guys, I get 10 of these a day.
See, that's what I would call marketing delusion.
It is. Absolutely.
They think they're doing great marketing, but it's just, it's doing them damage.
And that's one of the things that you talk about in the book, going, because we're here to talk about your book.
We can talk about anything. I don't mind.
and that's what I like, is the fact that you're actually, you're saying it, that the fact that you need to be on social media, but there again, if you're rubbish, you need to get off it, or you need to rethink about what you're going to do. And I think sometimes. And I think what often happens, what we see in small businesses isn't necessarily something that we target in the UK from my company's perspective. But what we see, because we get a lot of inbound from small businesses, is the fact that they'll say, well, what we'll do is that we'll give it to somebody else. So we'll give it to we've just got an intern, so we'll give it to the intern, and they probably don't know, or we've got someone, we'll give it to the designer to do, because we think that her time tends to go up and down in terms of the amount of design work. So we'll fit it in between. And then what they'll do is that they, in a way, the business owners are passing the pressure and the stress for them to go and learn it. And actually the other person doesn't know.
No. And they can't answer the strategic questions. And that's where, I've run many, many workshops where they've got, the young 25-year-old, she's really good on Facebook, and they're the one that are supposed to be doing the social media strategy for the company. And they're going, I don't know, because they don't know anything about business. And, and it is something that I see a lot. If the business owners, often the business owners are perhaps the best people to do it, but they're just so time poor that they feel that then they end up being in the business of, doing social media as opposed to running their business. So it's a real challenge, I think, for business owners.
Jo.
Well, you've got the token young person, or you've got the opposite where they've found a way to automate, and they've found Hootsuite or one of those type of tools, and suddenly they've had their hands off, and that's their approach, and they're ticking the social media box and thinking they're doing social media, and they're wondering why they're not getting any results.
I had a person at my previous company, and he came to me and he said, why don't we just automate social media and go back to doing our day jobs?
I think I read that in your book.
Well, I actually wrote a book about it, but I mean, it was one of those things where it was, it's the big mistake. I mean, I've actually refused to talk to people about how to automate their social media. Because I've always said you need to understand this, and this. You need to have a personal brand. You need to be understanding why you're posting before I'm going to talk to you about automating. And there was usually some. In my previous company, it was a bit like drugs. I assume there was somebody that would tell them about it, behind some arches somewhere or something like that. And then the next thing is that they're firing out all these things, and they're going, "Well, my follower base isn't growing." No shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me the tragedy is if they have put all those eggs in that basket, if they've gone, well, which happens, this is what I hear a lot, is that they go, oh, well, we've got a social media agency, and they're probably nowhere of the caliber of some of the other social media agencies. So they've gone to the wrong, very inexperienced, who are just about implementing it, are just about, yep, we'll get posts going for you. Again, no real strategy. They've gone, well, that's the marketing we're going to do. The problem is they give it maybe 3 or 6 months. And because it has no strategy, it's not really what it's about, it's not what's going to work for them, they've just now spent that 3 to 6 months opportunity cost when they could have been doing it, either doing that better and getting better results, or putting their energies into something else. And that's, I think, that seems to be a little bit of a trend that's been happening in Australia. People are starting to go, oh, I understand I can outsource elements of this, but they're outsourcing it to the wrong people. What do you think, Jo, about that?
Well, the other thing I see is people outsourcing to a virtual assistant. So you've got the VAs, and I'm not talking necessarily the VAs offshore. I mean, some people do that use the offshore because, it's the price, the price sensitive, and that appeals to them. Or you've even got the Australian, onshore VAs, or I suppose English VAs, or wherever you happen to be. But without the strategy, without the training, without the understanding of the market, the clients, the outcome, all of that stuff, once again, you're missing the mark, and then after a few months' time, it's not working. You've got the wrong voice. It's sort of semi-automated in a sense. So, and that's why I created a LinkedIn program for VAs to train them on how to do it properly, so that they understand how to work with clients to get the better results. Because you do want to actually get someone to do it for you, but you need to understand what you're doing first, I believe, before you start outsourcing or automating or doing any of those magic pills, we'll call them.
So you said the word strategy 5 or 6 times. So do you see that a strategy for an organization around social media is important?
Oh, 100%.
Right. And what do you mean by a strategy? Because a strategy could be, we're just going to post 30 times a day and we're going to use Hootsuite to do that. I'm being facetious, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, you start, Jo.
Well, I guess we both. That's where the thing we've actually got in common, because we both believe you've got to have a strategy first. Otherwise, what are you doing? And I mean, the strategy. I mean, this whole book really is strategy. It's very basic, easy to understand, written in English strategy. Because years ago, the word strategy used to scare me because I didn't know what it was. I thought, oh, strategy, I don't know about that stuff. But it doesn't have to be complicated and in this massive plan. It's about getting clear on, like I said, what you want to achieve, what you're going to measure. That's another aspect, and who you want to reach, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think it's really about how does it all align with your business goals, because it is, focused on business. It's like, well, what's your business here for? What's it trying to achieve? And then how is social media going to assist you with that? And then within that, then how are you going to actually work your social media so that it is effective? And for me, it's like there are 3 things that you bring to business: time, money, and energy. Now, with social media, you could bring all of the 3 of those things to it. And so if that's what you're investing, you really need to know that you're heading in the right direction. Otherwise, it's a bit like if you just set off on a country drive, who knows where you could end up and how much petrol you're going to have used. So I think, look, strategy is the only way of actually moving forward and reaching your goals, really. And whether it's social media, whether it's business, whether it's marketing, whether it's whatever, I think all businesses need to be a bit more strategic in their thinking.
And so the $56 million question, do you think organizations therefore should get third-party people to come and help them with their social media, either from a strategy perspective or, just helping them and guiding them? I know we're all kind of an interest in the answer to that question, but realistically, what's your view on that?
I'll just quickly jump in and say, look, for me, I think it can definitely help them, particularly with strategy, because I think often people don't necessarily have the expertise in-house to help them with that. So I think that's with anything, often you do need a specialist who can give you that really clear, focused advice in the first instance. And then my belief is you look at what's available within your staff, because there's the opportunity to capacity build and train people to become good in social media, as opposed to immediately outsourcing. So for the next stage, the implementation stage, I think it really depends on the organisation and it can be different. Yeah.
Jo.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I think sometimes organisations are too either don't know what they don't know, or they're blinded by past experience or past learnings and what they've been told previously. So I do believe having someone external come in and facilitate that strategy session could be useful. And then it's the plan as to what they're going to do, and the execution, as Elsa said, it could be having someone internally, like a marketing person, run it, or working closely with somebody else. But I do believe, the strategy, it can help working with an expert and someone who understands strategy and someone who understands the social media landscape and social business, rather than being a Facebook expert or a Twitter expert or a LinkedIn expert, for example. You've got to, I think, it's got to be someone who knows strategy.
And I think that's an important point.
Interesting your view, though, Tim.
Sorry, Jo. And I think it's important. I think sometimes if you get somebody in and they're a Facebook ads.
Tim, are you still here?
Can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Well, Jo.
Jo, I think we've lost you. Anyway, we're up to 26 minutes. So thanks for joining us. You okay there, Elisa?
I'm not hearing anything.
I was just sending her a quick message.
Right.
Yes. Well, I can't see you moving, Tim. I wasn't sure if you were sitting very still or if you're talking or if the connection's lost. I can see you, Elsa.
So excellent.
So anyway, we're up to 26 minutes. So really appreciate you joining. Just wanted to mention your book again, Get Good or Get Off.
Well, I guess while we're waiting for Tim to come back, show off the book. I guess I'm just thinking in terms of strategy. One of the models we came up with, and we cover it in the book, is our pyramid model, where it comes down to purpose with social media. So, starting with, is it a tool? Is it are you talking about building a presence, building a profile, or are you looking for lead generation? Or something else? Is it referrals? Anything you can expand on that, Elsa?
No, because I was madly typing. Sorry. Sorry, Jojo. No, I think Tim was going to just do a bit of a wrap up. So I'm going to throw over my head that way to Tim.
So Elsa, explain to people where they can get hold of you.
Well, we really appreciate you having us on your show. Much better than TED Talks, don't you reckon, Elsa?
Yeah, look, Tim Talks are superb. But we'll just back to you, Tim.
So I've just said, Jo.
So if you do, if you're interested in the book, obviously this is available online. It's on Amazon. You can find it there in Kindle version or print. You can go to either of our websites.
Oh, Jojo's gone. Either of our websites, and you can get a copy from there.
Where you can buy the book from, she gets cut off.
I know, that's just sabotage. That's I'm not going to say that. That's guerrilla marketing.
It is. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, I was just going to say, oh no, she's gone. I was just going to say, so the book is available from either of our websites and on Amazon. We're really excited about that. You can get it in a Kindle version. And we also have the first chapter free. So if anyone wants to do a little try before you buy, most happy for you to do that as well. And that's available on either of our websites.
Great to chat to you.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Okay, bye.